Hey everybody, Todd here. I just wanted to let everybody know I hope you're safe and staying healthy. God willing, we'll be through this coronavirus situation soon. In the meantime, we've rolled out a way to still do depositions. We're doing them remotely now via the free Zoom app. Many clients are already seeing the advantages of this because it can be done from anywhere and on any device. I've already done a podcast about it and started a resource library for it at www.toddolivas.com/remote depositions. Check that out or give us a call at 888-566-0253. Okay, on to the podcast, which was recorded prior to the coronavirus pandemic. So please stay safe and enjoy the podcast.
Talking about highs and lows, I totally lost all my business with State Comp.
In one day, you lose it all.
Day.
How much of the business did that represent at that time?
That must have been about 60% of our business. Wow. Yeah. State Fund was big for us in those days. And so that actually, you know what? When there's a low moment, it's how you find ways of picking yourself up. And we've had some incredibly also low moments. And how is it that you start gathering together and you find there's always a sweet spot, if you can find it, that actually makes you laugh about that past situation. And so it taught us not to put all your eggs in one basket. Hello, my name is Carlos and I'm with CVC Legal.
Hello, Carlos Echeverry from CVC Legal. Thank you so much for coming on the T.O.A. Storytellers podcast. How you sound on that microphone?
I'm hoping that I'm going to sound right.
I think you sound great. I think you're a natural at this.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing if I can talk to people and give them a little bit of an idea of where I came from, who I am, and what I have as a vision for our future.
Yeah.
Perfect, yeah.
Quickly, though, CVC Legal is a subpoenaing records company, right?
Well,
what's the nutshell?
CVC Legal does that as the main. It is their main factor. That's what we do the most work on. But we wanted to be originally a company that really provided legal services, and it really started with the concept of trying to see if we could help the law firm process the claims faster. So it has always been involved in and evolved around the whole idea of subpoena documents, copying documents, gathering information, record discovery. But we do all types of things. They call us up to do substitution of attorney, movement of documents, to do digital files, to do all types of other things. We actually even do document destruction, legal document destruction.
Of all the people that we've invited on our podcast so far, I've been looking forward to this one the most.
My goodness, wow.
That's no lie.
Thank you.
I'm going to tell you why.
Sure.
Because you specifically are my guardian angel from around 2003, 2004 time frame, when I was just starting this out and I had no idea what I was doing. You, for no reason, decided to take me under your wing, and you showed me the ropes, and I'll never forget it, and I'll never stop being appreciative of that. And you're like woven into my story, into the history of this company from that day on, and so I'm grateful, and I wanted to say that and say thank you.
Well, thank you kindly. Thank you for
without you,
mentioning
I don't know what would have happened to me. You came along and you said, hey, because we could tell the whole story, but just
tell a story. I think that's important.
In a nutshell, it was, I wasn't even doing court reporting then. I had gone to the court reporting school, and I put that on the back burner, and I started a web development company, and I had this company, and you were one of my clients. We were making your website. That's how I got to know you. That's how I got to know John Castro and Rick Castro as well, right?
Yeah.
And then that was no longer where I wanted to go anymore, the web side of things. And I thought, you know what? I have this court reporting license. Why don't I try that? Why don't I start my own court reporting agency? And you're the only person I knew who knew anything about lawyers. So I went to you and I said, hey, Carlos, I know that your clients are attorneys. Could you give me some feedback or give me some pointers? And you said, why don't you jump in the car? Let's go. And you took me out.
In his Tahoe, right?
Michelle Bryce and some of this other fine ladies, 5 people that we
went
met
to
along the way.
many offices in the Santa Ana area, Orange and stuff, and you introduced me. And on the first day we went out, I got my first depot scheduled by Fawn Wallace she was working at the offices of Robert Wheatley. And that was the first one. So thank you.
I got to say, and I thank you for mentioning that, but I also got to say, I still have some clients from basically on our end of things from MicroQuick from day one, and one of them that I'm very grateful with it's a very fine gentleman by the name of Robert Wheatley, and you met Robert Wheatley, and it's been very long, more than 30 something years of being involved in.
What's the secret to keeping a client that long? 30 years.
I kind of wanted to talk to a little bit later, and the whole idea of how the industry has changed, and that there's some types of clients that kind of I've been able to work with for a very long time in trying to provide what I'm hoping there will always be is a very good service. I thank you, by the way, on that part.
Thank you. Well, I know that you've got an incredible story. You guys came from Colombia from some point. Actually, you provided some notes on here. I see Guatemala on here. I didn't know Guatemala was.
I didn't even know about Guatemala. By the way, This is John.
Oh yeah, I'm John Castro's here. Rick Castro's here.
Hello, good morning.
I'm not only his
Todd
nephew,
Olivas.
but Carlos is actually my godfather as well.
Really?
Yeah, he's the one that gives me the best gifts for my birthday.
What is the godfather's job anyway? I'm a godfather of somebody. I don't even know what to do.
You're supposed to spoil them.
Truly, basically, honestly, the original or the premise on the idea of a godfather is basically if your father was to pass away, and you would be coming in as the godfather, the father that basically would help that person continue growing and developing himself. Gotcha. But I think over the years it really has lost quite a lot of value, and I feel bad about that.
John, did you get a lot of value out of Carlos being your?
Oh, of course, he's always been a mentor to me. He's always been somebody that I can count on. Yeah, and he's somebody that took me also under his wing when I started with MicroQuick. Carlos taught me how to market. Carlos taught me how to.
Me too.
Carlos taught me. I'll never forget. Carlos taught me when I was 16 years old how to read a Thomas guide. Within 5 minutes, I had to figure out
the spiral map thing.
Yeah, it's a for people that don't know what it is. It's kind of like what a.
This is before Google Maps.
Google Maps
and everything.
So literally, it's a book with numbers on it and maps, and you had to figure out. Okay, well, if you're in Anaheim. And Carlos was sending me everywhere. So for example, San Diego. I had never been to San Diego at 16 years old. And he would teach me how to look at the city name and then figure out the coordinates.
Skip the page to the right page.
Yeah. So I mean, it was amazing. That was one thing that I really remember how fast he taught me that, and how he's taught me about the gatekeeper.
You've had a big impact on people's lives, Carlos. How do you feel about that?
Yeah.
What's your secret?
I don't know what to say about that part. I just, whenever I can help, I'm there, and that's true. One of the things. But I kind of wanted to back up a little bit, and within my storyline, mention my mother.
Okay.
And
I've met your mom.
You have, huh?
Yeah.
And my mother truly was a visionary, and I remember as we were growing up, she was never very settled with basically our conditions, and so she worked extra, did all kinds of extra things to try to see if she could always make our lives better. And I think over the years she had, and one of them was she found a half brother living in California, and she was very bothered by the fact that our economic conditions were not quite well in South America, and so she decided to come and visit him. And before you know it, she wanted to bring my father along for the ride, but my father was having too good of a life in South America.
Colombia.
In Colombia, yes. He was running a business for my grandfather, and he didn't want to go through the changes because changes are very, very difficult.
Yes.
And, but my mother had basically she was.
Determined.
She knew our future. Our future would have been here, and so she started doing all the legal paperwork. And before you know it, she's packing my father in. As later on, there's 5 kids getting on an airplane for the first time.
Whoa.
That is scary,
Uncle.
Yeah.
So in Colombia, what business did Fercho's dad have?
So
and Chilo, what did she do? Chilo's my grandma, Cecilia.
My grandfather had the fortunes of receiving quite a lot of inheritance from his father, my great grandfather, and so my grandfather had a bottling company business, which my father got involved in trying to run. But later on, my father got into the restaurant business because my grandfather had a couple of restaurants in our little town. He opened it up in the big city, which is called Bogota, and the whole thing actually went south. It never really quite developed into what it really wanted to be. So anyway, things got very difficult, and so you have 5 kids, and you got to feed them, and that's when my mother really came into the effect, and she worked really hard trying to get the money for the airplane tickets, and got over here, and before you know it, they had rented a house, not an apartment. And
wow. What years were these? Was it like in the 70s?
Actually, my mother came in, I think, to visit my uncle in 1967. In 1969 is when she brought us all into being together here in the United States.
She came by herself and started working here by herself so that she can provide and have a location for the kids to live.
Well, she came by herself because she was, you can say, a rebel, a visionary. She just wanted something different. And
that's where you get that fire from.
I kind of think we do. Both my brothers and my sisters also. Yeah, all of us. We do.
And nephews.
It's true. We always said Cecilia was like the godfather in our family.
Yeah.
She would sit at the table and everybody would listen.
Wow.
One great thing that I kind of see to this moment that I kind of feel that people value in us as a family is how together we are as a family. I mean, just to show you, my wife will be doing another Halloween carving thing that she does every year, and there will be more than 20-something, 30-something family members and friends getting involved. Same thing with Thanksgiving. Our Thanksgivings are big, and it all relates right. And the 16 days of Christmas.
16 days, starting on your birthday.
Yeah, it starts on the 16th of my birthday, and it really all comes down to how my father always make sure that we were all together. We would be together and running to that, doing that, and getting it done together.
Barbecuecito.
Yeah.
So how old were you when you came to the United States?
I came in as a 12-year-old.
Okay, so that's like junior high level?
Yes.
Junior high? Yes. What? What junior high was it?
Well, that was in 1969, and the interesting thing about all that is all of a sudden we're coming into a very formal school, and it still is Brooker's Junior High School, and we didn't know. We only knew how to say "me no English" or something, something of that level.
That's awesome.
And so, of course, my sister and myself, we were, blue eye and kind of white kind of kids, and I just remember that the first day of school we kind of fitted, with the type of crowd where my parents decided to move to, which is near Disneyland area. In any case, what happened is we didn't know some of the colloquial and some of the
it's your sister calling.
interesting.
She says you're lying already about family history.
And so it turns out that
first of all, I didn't know you had blue eyes. Do you have blue eyes?
Yeah.
Very light eyes.
Tinted eyes. Okay.
Yeah,
beautiful. What's your secret? Wow. There's the secret right there. Okay.
Well, there's a brother of mine, Luis. He is the only one that has brown eyes. And when we were growing up, we used to just make fun of him whenever we get a chance and say, "Yeah, you're the only one. You're the only adopted one."
Adopted one. Poor guy. I know how he feels.
Yeah. Johnny's the only one with brown eyes.
I'm the only brown-eyed one here in the podcast too.
So anyway, so at Brookers Junior High, the kids wanted to have fun with us, and so they gave me bubble gum, and there was a rule in school that you were not supposed to chew gum while you're in class. But since it was my first day of school, they're trying to play with me and they're trying to make me
make a bubble.
And so I thought that was like a normal thing here with kids. And the first day of school, I'm already going to the principal's office.
Oh, nice.
And they're trying to call my parents, trying to explain to me that
they didn't understand either.
And I didn't get it then.
So you've been getting in trouble your whole life, basically, right? And you blame it on the other kids.
All
right, so that's junior high.
Yes.
And then where'd you go to high school?
I went to Savannah High School.
Also Anaheim area?
In the Anaheim area, right next to
Tiger Woods.
Miller's golf course
cool.
on Gilbert, basically, and Crescent in Anaheim.
Hey, do you go to any of the high school reunions? You do that stuff?
You know what? I think they gave up.
They did? There's no planner? There's nobody in charge?
Nobody's doing much of anything on that. I think they're getting together every once in a while, once a year or so.
So that's what's so weird. When I graduated, I figured, somebody else is going to handle it. Like there's some official thing that's part of the district that just does that.
Me too.
There's
I
nothing.
thought that. No.
It's nothing. It's like volunteers. It's like if I wanted to have a shindig for my class of 1989, 100 years ago, then I could,
I'm trying to figure out whether the reason why there is no vibrancy regarding us trying to get together is because maybe the whole idea is that people didn't see value in bringing a bunch of
people are busy, and maybe not everyone's connected. I mean, Facebook helps. That's
right. Yeah, that would help.
All right, so you graduated high school, and then what was your first job?
My first job was actually being an intern at formal job, being an intern at City of Westminster when I was going to college at Cal Poly Pomona. But prior to that, actually, ever since we've been in the United States, both my brother and I have been involved in working. I mean, when we were 13 years old, we used to go to apartment complexes and ask if we could pull the weeds when nobody else would have little kids doing that. Yeah. And they used to look at us with one of those faces like, what?
How much did you charge?
Yeah.
How much did you charge?
Sometimes they would pay us, sometimes they didn't. So it was that kind of a thing. And I remember that
or maybe they told you, come back later for your money, but you didn't know English. you never got it.
So
that's true.
I remember when I was 15 years old or so, there was a store by the name of Gemco, and it was owned by the Lucky Company, and they're no longer around anyways. Yeah. But I remember I used to go by the parking lot, and I used to pull the baskets and roll them in. And so
for free?
Well, I was trying to see if somebody would give me anything. So
pay you to do it.
Yeah. And so I tried to talk to the manager, and before you know it, he was asking me my age, and I lied. I said I was 16 years old, and he kind of looked at me. I don't think so. But I ended up at 15 years of age getting my job working at Gemco part-time. Wow. And then they moved me to the grocery department.
So here's what I've learned so far about Carlos. Okay, he's a troublemaker right from the first day of school. Then he lies, and then he works but doesn't expect to get paid. So it's perfect.
Perfect. Work in the workers' comp industry.
So,
but that's cool. So you were the guy pushing the carts, and then you ended up going into the grocery store and doing something else.
Yes, and so Gemco was a very interesting idea. I really feel bad that it kind of died out. It was actually a company that had different little companies inside the store.
Oh, like a mall.
Like a swap meet.
Like each individual store had its own.
So they had different departments, just like right now, Target, it's doing that of the groceries and the vegetables and all that. But look how much later they came into that. I mean, Target and Walmart and what have you. But Gemco was doing that in the late 1960s and until they got closed out. And so the grocery part was being run by Lucky. And I remember they started, my first part of the job was to go pull baskets and help people bring the groceries to the cart. In those days, there was more courtesy-driven type of little jobs,
gas stations, that'd be full service, right?
Yes.
What a concept. You just pull up and some guy runs out and
washes your windows.
Yeah.
And if you notice,
I miss the 50s.
Right, in those days, a lot of those jobs would be carried by very young men, kids and all that. But nowadays we have that relationship about the idea of you got to be over 16 years of age and all that, which is, and the child labor kind of issues and all that kind of stuff. But in those days, there was a lot of kids working in different type of stuff.
And they wanted to, because it also gave them independence and some extra cash. So,
yes. And we needed it because being, immigrants with, my parents with 5 kids, my mother used to work the 8 hours and then she used to do another part-time job. But she would come home, set up for dinner, and then go do the other job. And my father used to have 2 jobs. So one person that I really, truly have always admired as a mentor it's always been my father, because even though he worked his tail off, he always had the time for us. He would find, I remember playing football, American football, which I didn't even know, but the school needed players because they were so bad. They were so bad.
Get that troublemaker out here.
So basically, there was like only about 22 players in the team, and So they asked me to go play football, and I go, I don't even. So I played it, but my dad showed up for the first day to take the photograph, and he almost got fired from the company because in those days, you could not just get out of work at midday and do that type of stuff. So
and that's amazing because you're a family of 5, so that's a lot of kids to have to give time to, right?
Yes.
As a parent, it's much easier just to go to work, but to invest in those 5 children is quite a testament to your dad.
What kind of jobs did Grandpa and Grandma have?
Well, my father used to work for a company called Adler Highlight, which was a German company that made windows, but of course got laid off. He ended up working, the longest job that he ended up working was for a can company that got bought out by Anheuser-Busch, and this can company actually just made the cans for the beer products and the Coke products. And in those days, they would pack up for all types of companies like Pepsi and what have you. And so my dad used to be one of those forklift drivers, and he took it, very dearly. He was, hopefully the idea was for him was to be employee number 1, always on time, always working extra time, always doing extra little things. And that's the kind of stuff that I kind of learned from my dad about, working harder.
It's amazing. It's interesting that you came here knowing very little English, but then eventually you went to Cal Poly Pomona and got a bachelor's degree in something.
That was another thing. Within our family, we were not used to getting college degrees, but for me it was rather difficult because I didn't have anybody helping me or the mentoring regarding education. And so everything came out of, hey, what do you want to do? And I really wanted to be an architect, and and so that's why I went to Cal Poly to try to be an architect. But the demand was very high. Cal Poly is one of the best schools regarding architecture, and so I ended up getting what is called second best, which is urban planning. But I really enjoyed it. Urban planning is one of those type of you can say a career or so, where you're trying to work on the idea of making life easier for everybody that lives in it, and to make the rules work out really good as far as project development, so that you can have very well built cities. A good example is the city of Irvine in urban planning.
Very true. What part of that carries over into what you do now, and when you've started businesses? We'll get into all the details about how that happened, but from that educational standpoint, bachelor in urban planning, what carries over and how does it, help what you do today?
So, in those days, I guess you can call it lack of luck. It turns out this is about 1978, 79, 80 or so. This is when they passed a Proposition 13, which is a tax law. And basically, it removed 1% of taxes from every single property within the state of California. Mr. Jarvis, which I'm never going to visit his grave, I guess.
That was the governor at the time?
No, he was a person that got really involved in pushing for this proposition to come through, and it came through, and it was the idea of helping the homeowners have less taxes, but it worked on the bad side on my end, because as an urban planner, they use tax money to make perfect cities.
Right.
And I got laid off within the first year, and for 2 years I could not find anything regarding my career. Nobody was hiring regarding urban planning. So that's where John and Rick's father, Luis, comes into the scene, and he tells me that there's a very progressive company that needs employees. And so I go and apply, and this company still is around. It's called Compex, and I started working from the very low end, but they kind of knew that I had the bachelor degrees, and so before you know it, they started moving me up in the company. Within 2 years, I was an assistant in their San Diego office, and that company was growing.
What were you doing for Compex?
Compex is a company that actually does pretty much what I've gotten involved with in doing right now, which is they were only basically a company that subpoena document discovery kind of company. The biggest one around. It was run by two brothers, the Edelman brothers, and they sold out to a Wall Street company. Well, when I was in San Diego already as an assistant manager, that company, the Wall Street company, basically started running the show. And I've noticed in San Diego that the manager, my manager, was basically funneling business away from the company. But I didn't know who to go to, because there was this changing company. And before you know it, I decided to move away from all of that and started my own company. Being very naive.
Yeah.
In those days, I used to think that it was just going to be that simple. You just,
start your own thing.
Your own thing, and it was very, very difficult.
It's that simple, but maybe not that easy, right?
Right.
Start your own business.
Right.
And then where did you start your business at?
It really originally started in San Diego, but I noticed that I could not make it, so it was going to be go work for somebody else. And so I talked to my parents, and here it is. My parents coming through for me. They opened up the garage. We turned it into an office. They took a loan on the house, and that's how it is.
There's a lot of great businesses that have started in garages.
Yes.
I can think of several.
Yeah.
I think of Hewlett Packard started in a garage in
Apple,
Silicon Valley. I think Apple.
Yeah, he started in the garage too.
Microsoft.
Yeah.
Zappos.
What's that?
Shoop guy.
Oh, Zappos.
Zappos in Vegas.
In Vegas, yeah.
Zappos.
Zappos. Ricky has a Spanish accent too. So.
But
so you started. What was the name of the company then?
Then we started. It was a pretty interesting little name. It's called Microquick.
Yeah.
And the whole idea behind Microquick is, in those days, pretty much everything was done on microfilm. And so whenever you would go and copy, there was a very innovative type of equipment where you could actually make the pages go through, and it would take a photograph, but it was a moving photograph.
Wow.
It's pretty interesting. And so everything was in microfilm. And And so micro means microfilm, and quick, of course, trying to be a company that is doing the work rather quick, quick. And we ran micro quick until 2010, and that is when my father passed away. My father actually passed away in 2009, but we were having issues regarding the fact that my father was a part of the company since he helped me start it.
Investor.
And right. And so we thought about what to do. And we came up with CVC Legal. And CVC Legal stands for, well, you can say for Cecilia first or Carlos first.
Cecilia is his mom.
My mom, Cecilia, actually it's Carlos, Victoria, and Cecilia. And the reason was my mother was very involved in helping us move the company along in those days, and we're still around.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was there even towards the end. It
When a
was
company-
amazing how she was there. Even we'd figure out something to do for her to do because she wanted to work.
Yeah.
She always wanted to work.
If a business changes its name after how many years, is it how hard of a transition is that?
I was really very, very nervous, but I had John and Rick and Vicky, my sister. And those days they were working with me before you stole them away. You stole them away from me.
I'm a jerk.
But in those days, again, being naive or so, here's John and here's Rick, and they were my crack sales team, and they've come up to me and they go, "Hey, no problem, Uncle.
Actually,
it's going to be easy. It's going to be a piece of cake.
We never took drug tests. I don't know. Were you guys on crack or something?
And so they started going and knocking on doors and saying, "Hey, listen, from now on the work is going to be going through CVC Legal, but it's the same micro quick, same group of people." We ended up getting about 70% of the clients sticking with us. About 30%, I would say, that basically just kind of like, I don't know what's going on there. I don't know. And things change.
Yeah.
But with time, we were able to pick ourselves back up again. And all that
if it's just a name's change, who cares? The service is still great.
I don't know. I kind of disagree with you.
You do?
Yes, I do. I do believe that if a company changes, first of all, you got to find out, why are they changing? Why are they changing?
Okay.
Is it different philosophy, different science, different?
Like a 30-second conversation, and then change your name because
a lot of questions though, and you have to rebrand yourself at that point. So
that's right.
Made it a little difficult at the time.
And I did actually. I'm glad you guys are mentioning the branding
leaf,
part.
Yeah.
Yes.
The what?
The green leaf. And, So CVC, I have always had this vision that I was one of the first guys ever that I can imagine that got involved with scanners and the fax machine. And my first fax machine was even taller than I am. I'm not very tall, but it was
that's pretty tall. So it's pretty tall.
5 feet tall.
It's tall for a scanning machine, not tall for a human.
Exactly.
Just kidding.
So
these guys always kid you on how tall you are. You're fine, right? It's Rick and John, though.
Hey, you know what?
I should take a picture of Uncle Carlos. He's right now he's sitting on his chair and he can't touch the floor.
Not true.
Well, you know
we
what?
have booster seat.
You guys got to look at it. There's a guy by the name of Messi.
Oh, that's right.
He's not that tall.
He's
there was
amazing,
a guy.
right? Even I know him.
Yeah, there was a stubborn guy by the name of Napoleon, and he was not that tall.
So true.
To me, that doesn't matter. I've never had.
Tom
an issue
Cruise is
regarding-
not that tall, I think, right?
No,
Tom Cruise, like 5 feet tall or something, with platforms he wears.
Yeah, he does.
But
Anyway.
But Carlos's wife is taller than him, so
That's okay.
That's fine.
That proves he's secure.
But anyway, so
So you got married at some point, John tells me.
yeah.
well,
Devil.
Actually, I've gone through 2 marriages. My first marriage was rather incredibly attractive young lady that we moved to San Diego right when we got married, and that was, I think, part of the problem about getting ourselves going as a couple. In those days, I was very involved in trying to get myself going with the company that I was working with, and I was not looking at signs. And the sign was that she was the type of person that have issues about being alone and issues about not sleeping at night and all the things that now we're dealing with quite a lot with a lot of
mental health.
Yes, and so I kept being very bothered by the fact that I felt like things were not going the way I kind of wanted it to go. And she took a break from our relationship. She actually moved in with her aunt, and before you know it, it's kind of sad, but one of my best friends went to try to go and mentor her, and before you know it, I think he mentored her a little too much.
He said mentored.
Yeah.
Toward you.
So
oh, that's good.
Yeah,
I'm sorry that happened.
Yeah, she basically came up to me and says, "You know what? We're not doing too good, and I'm moving on in my life." And I said, "Well, I don't look back," and I didn't, and I moved on. So,
would you consider that one of the low points of your life, though?
Yeah, it was really very difficult. But check this out. Later on, as you know, I've had so many people work for me. She actually came back later on to work for me.
Oh, wow.
And I actually, through her cancer, I was there when she took her last breath. So
hold on 1 second.
Sure.
I want to get this nice and clean.
We're going to edit it out.
Repeat that last part about her last breath.
Well, the fact that she came back and started working. She started working for me back again. I usually don't say no to anybody that really needs help, or somebody that wants to get perhaps, I don't know, a second break or what have you. And at this moment, I was already married with my wonderful wife. But I took her back in, and I helped her through the last couple of years of her cancer, and I was there when she had her last breath, I had always kind of noticed what a wonderful person she was, but she was a very lonely person, and sometimes you feel bad that you didn't do more or you didn't do enough, and that's one of them right there, but some years later I remarried, and
where did you meet Stelita?
Well, Stella, it's interesting. Stella is from the same town in Colombia where I was born, and she came to the United States working for the university UCI. She's got a master's degree in biology. And she was going to be doing some experiment. In those days, there was an issue regarding dead flies in the late 70s or so. And so she came in to do some of her biological research regarding plants and what have you. And I was dating a Cuban girl.
A
Cuban
Cubana.
And she was finishing her doctorate degree in languages, and so when I met Stella, things changed, and before you know it, we became very good friends, and a little more than a year later, I asked her to marry, and that was just a wonderful experience all the way through. She's been a wonderful mentor.
I'm still struck by the fact that your ex-wife,
sure,
that you would employ your ex-wife, and that you'd be there for her during her time of need at the end of her life. Even that's amazing to me. Who does that? Most people can't even be in the same room as their exes, right? How did you do that?
I have no problem. I mean, to me, it's I think that kind of runs a little bit in our family. I've got an interesting partner in my sister, and she picks up what have you, stray dogs.
She does.
She's the Mother Teresa of stray dogs.
She's actually my mother and John's mother. Yeah.
And then I have a niece, Saida, that she always finds a little animal, a bird or what have you, that has got a broken wing. And so, by the way, I have also done that, and I started taking care of that animal and that bird, and before you know it, it's flying back again. So
I feel like one of your little birds that you've fixed up in my early days.
Oh, thank you. I've I was able to help my brother Luis, and by the way, my brother Luis has had a incredible. He's very devoted, very shrewd, very involved in what he's done, and I
Luis
was
is the
able
owner
to,
of Continental Interpreting.
Yes, my brother Luis, and I was able to get involved with him. But I also worked with my sister-in-law, which is Consuelo, and she was
his wife.
Yes, and there was a reason why many years back when I was in college, I tried to make it to Colombia with a couple of friends going by car, and so basically I spent about $700, and we only made it to Guatemala. And the reason behind that is because there was a war in Nicaragua with the Sandinistas, and they would not let us go through. And our goal was to make it all the way to South America by car. So I've always been a.
Is that even possible?
Of course,
there's a rainforest that you cannot go through.
Well, in Panama. You have the back trails, or you can actually just take a boat and go from Panama to Colombia.
Oh,
and from then on, you can go to the Continental Highway that there is to
the boat
all the way to Argentina. But anyway, it was one of the most wonderful experiences because I got to meet so many different types of people, especially a lot of tourists. And we used to play this wonderful game. We used to go to these tourist towns.
Right.
That's an example, Acapulco or Mazatlan, and we had a tent. And in those days, things were so different. Young people would like right now you see a lot of people basically thrown in the streets, but in those days, if you were doing that, people would pick you up.
You guys were hippies in that sense.
Yes, in those days, and so we would go to this resort type towns, and we would go in one of the famous resorts, and we would buy a bottle of French wine. We always bought French wine, and so people would come by and they would see us, and we would be drinking that ever so slowly.
Well, with $700 only, you gotta like savor every penny, right?
And before you know it, we would meet people from other parts of the world, and we would be invited and what have you, and then we're having a great time in that town. And so we kept doing that all the way down to.
How long was that trip?
Getting a free shower.
We ended up spending about 3 months between Mexico.
On $700, dude. That's a great deal.
Well, it was my $700. The other guys also. There were 2 other guys.
Okay.
How old were you there?
I must have been 17
Wow.
years.
That's really young.
Yes. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It was a pretty interesting time. And didn't make it to South America. I had a girlfriend a girl that I kind of wanted to go visit. That was part of my stimulus of why I wanted to make it down there.
To Colombia.
But that
stimulation.
So I didn't make it, but I had a great time. Anyway.
That's a really cool story. That's one thing that I never did growing up, and I think I wish I would have done either.
What?
Is
travel like that?
Go to college in another country, or even travel like that. Like go just drive. I do know a lot of countries because my wife and we do travel a lot, but at the same time, I didn't do it as like a 17-year-old, 18-year-old, and I think that's important because you can. Yeah. What I always tell people, when you travel, it opens your eyes more. You get to see how other people live.
I've been encouraging that in my son Nicholas. He's been to he's been all over Europe. He's been in Singapore. He's been in New Zealand. He's been in Australia. He's been in. Wow. He hasn't been to Africa, but I mean I think he's got 2 trips coming up towards the end of the year. So that's part of the thing that I kind of encourage.
With you running a business now for 30 years, how much time are you not allowed, but how much time do you allot to travel nowadays?
I'm beginning to do a little more. Like last year, I took a full month to go and visit Europe. This next year, I'm taking about 3 weeks to go through Greece and and Turkey and what have you, and finishing in Barcelona. And I'm hoping that I can go and watch one of the killer games there. Well, no.
A Clásico?
Yeah, no, maybe a Clásico, or right now the European Cup. And that would be one of the biggest
That's my
things
dream
for me.
too. To watch
So I've traveled chasing the World Cup, and that's every 4 years. And to me, that is just it cannot be described, the emotions, especially when you're meeting people from other parts of the world. And at one moment you're rivals, but right after the end of that game, you're having drinks with these people and talking and getting to know people from other cultures. The value level of that is just way out of sight.
I've always noticed that you have a certain zest and like a savoring for life, like a richness about the way you do life every day. Do you see that about yourself? Even on your bad days, I've seen some bad days.
Of course,
you know what? Tough at work and stuff, but you've always been able to overcome it with a great attitude. Do you see yourself that way?
You know what? I don't know.
You don't know. and I know you've had some health stuff too. Are you okay with talking about that? Are you care to share that, or you want to just keep that off the record?
Is this regarding venereal disease or? No. Listen, yes, I've had 2 heart attacks.
Oh my!
And
gosh.
both of those heart attacks were pretty interesting. One of them, I was running for about I would say about 4 miles or so, trying to make it to a stadium with my son to watch a soccer game. It was Brazil, right?
Yeah.
And we were running so hard. We were running so fast.
Like from
Pasadena,
the parking lot, from the parking lot or something like that?
Yeah, we get there? In Pasadena to the Rose Bowl. Yeah, and because there was no place to park anywhere.
Okay.
So we ended up being like
Late.
very far away. But once I landed there, being short of breath, I had a blocked artery, and before you know it,
what was that?
I'm in the game, and I'm going.
What does that even feel
I'm
like?
hardly breathing.
Yeah, what does a heart attack? What does a heart attack feel like?
Well,
How
for
would you
me,
explain it?
For me, the 2 moments that I've had heart issues have been when you feel like an elephant is stepping on your chest. Nothing really hurts. You just can't breathe that well, and you feel kind of dazed, and you feel kind of actually you start getting somewhat relaxed. It's kind of a weird thing. You feel pressure, but you just don't have the energy to run 200 miles per hour and getting something done. If somebody doesn't come up to help you, which by the way at this moment it was my son on the first one, and my wonderful wife on the second one.
So you're having these chest pains, and does Nick, your son, realize there's something wrong? Are you telling him
right
what's
away?
going on?
Right away, yeah. So 5-10 minutes into the game, and nothing major is happening.
Yeah.
But I'm going. Hey Nick, I'm going south here. I'm beginning to see kind of blurry, and I can't hardly breathe. The wonderful thing is that they had such. By the way, that's one wonderful thing about the United States being such a wonderful country. When you visit other places, the level of emergency
response
related response, it's so amazing. So 5 minutes later, I was at Huntington Hospital, and
You went
45 minutes later, they were already working on me.
You went from the Rose Bowl in an ambulance to the Huntington Hospital?
They were so amazing. It's just the level of performance. It's out of this world. And you know what? Someplace else, I wouldn't have been here to talk to you guys about it. So,
and I know that some people say when something like that happens, like a heart attack, it changes your life the way you think after that.
Hell no. Jeez, you know what?
What do you think? How do you feel it has, or like in a sense that?
I think for Uncle Carlos,
regarding traveling, I think
right.
Excuse me, what happened to my plant?
Right. No, I had to move it. I had to see John's face. No, I think from Uncle Carlos, I did see a lot of change after that.
Me too.
But in 2 different ways.
He's surprised.
He got a little shorter.
What's the change you saw?
One of them, I think he kind of I mean, he was always a great person, but it kind of humbled him a little bit, and also accelerated him to enjoy life more than be so much in. Because one
Work
thing that
mode.
you do is you're a critical thinker. You're always in concentration, always thinking of 10 different options and 10 steps ahead. But I think it also helped you to say, hey, you know what? Let me enjoy this moment without so much thought process.
Yeah, you started putting more time into your relationship with your wife and traveling more. You started doing more with Nick, I think, in the sense that with all his businesses that he started. I noticed that part too. That
do you agree with these guys, or you're like,
or maybe
don't agree?
You know what? I could agree, but I think that's the reason why I ended up getting a second one.
Okay. How long after that was the second one?
I think it was about 2 years later. But the problem that I'm having is some kind of a level of heart degenerative kind of an issue. And by the way, my mother, when she was in their last couple of weeks of life, basically the doctors were saying there's nothing we can do because her heart had become so enlarged. And so that's part of what happens has happened to me and my brother Luis, by the way. When your heart enlarges somewhat, the arteries kind of tend to move and shift, and so before you know it, you find yourself having a blocked artery, and so I have been taking my medicine, but all of a sudden, a few years later, guess what? There's another blocked artery, and so what I'm trying to do is be a little more preventive in how it is that I've always been extreme kind of a person, so to this moment, I'm still playing soccer. So I have a partial knee. That means half of one knee is metal and the other part is normal. And the doctor basically told me that I was going to be able to walk and maybe play golf. And this must have been 20-something years ago. And it was when it was rather experimental in those days, that part of a partial knee. In any case, he said within about 10 years, we're going to have to replace it. And this is 20-something years later.
But when you're playing soccer and your blood pressure is going up and you're breathing heavy and you're running full speed, I mean, that's got to really press the heart pretty hard, right?
Yeah. And I had a very good friend of mine die like in the field. On the field.
Oh,
but
man.
With that kind
Were you
of
there?
show. No, I wasn't. I know I wasn't. But I had just played with him 2 days earlier.
Wow.
So in the old days, I used to play on Tuesdays and Thursdays and also on Saturdays. But now I'm only playing like once a week or so. But I'm doing something very, very exciting, and wherever I can help. So I was able to get my son to teach my son how to be a better kicker, because even though he was playing soccer at his high school and he was within this starting team, he also was in the varsity football team, and he was a kicker, but he was the backup kicker. And I take competition, so before you know it, we're working, both my son and I, and he was able to top the guy that was actually the starting kicker, and my son got they won the state championship
because of his kick. I'll never forget that kick.
It was 4 kicks.
You were there?
4 kicks in one game. Anyway, so
it was on
get it
ESPN.
right, John. Get
it
it
was
right.
on ESPN.
Yeah, but anyway,
Nicolas.
That's cool.
The point
Probably
is
on YouTube now.
The point is, I was able to gather that, and right now, today actually, I have a football game, American football game. I'm a coach at a high school.
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
So
You told me you didn't know anything about the game.
I did. I still don't. I still don't. But I know about kicking, and so right now my kicking squad is doing fantastic.
Where are you coaching at?
It's called Bloomington High School. It's like near the Fontana area, and we were 5-1.
Yeah.
And the previous year we had lost every single game. I think that.
Wow.
But we got our butts
Kicked
this last week,
Oh,
and
sorry.
so this week has been.
I blame the
retooling
coach.
Yes,
what I always blame.
retooling the kids again, and I think we're going to.
No,
do
but
good today.
this shows what I was saying earlier, that you have a zest for life. You have a, I don't know, a certain like energy, and you have this rich, full life going on. Because even though you're still running a business, even though you've had 2 heart attacks, and you still do all your normal stuff. You play soccer,
yes,
way too much probably, and too hard, and you also volunteer and you coach.
When you're
some
volunteering
football team somewhere.
Yeah, when you're volunteering right now, like, what do you get out of it?
To me, that is one of the most gratifying satisfactions. The fact that you get these kids that really want to learn. Mm-hmm. They don't have anybody that's basically coming to them and saying, this is how you do what you do. By the way, I could get involved also in the future, maybe coaching other stuff. Yeah. Like I like coaching golf, by the way. Not that I'm good at hitting the ball, but I think sometimes I see some things that could help some people. Anyway, the issue is these kids, they just need somebody, like perhaps the word a mentor, somebody that would basically show them not only the ropes, but be there with them when the things are low, like sort of like what happened last week, being able to help them pick themselves up again and do a good job and have a very good attitude. And I'm just hoping that in the future,
those kids
for
are
me,
lucky.
I'm just
those kids are lucky because we started off this podcast by me saying how you mentored me early on and how that was a definitive, defining moment and that changed the course of my life in this business. So you have that just oozing out of you all the time, I guess.
And I know because you have mentioned you had mentors like your father, your mom. Is there anybody else that you can say mentored you?
I constantly keep going back to a very fine lady. Her name is Edie Renaga. She works. She's the manager at the law office of Robert Wheatley. Incredibly bright person, but very gentle person and very soft person at helping you understand what it is that she knows about that she can actually teach you. And one of the goals that I'm having is I'm trying to see if I can provide better value, better service to my industry, to the workers' comp industry. And I've been working with her on a couple of assignments.
Cool. What kinds of things are you guys talking about?
This industry has changed quite a lot. I guess I was going to bring that up at sometime in our conversation. That as far as what I do, which is gather information, document discovery, basically what we're talking about. It used to quite be driven by the law office needing something and applying themselves to gathering something. Now there's too many issues about requesting something and trying to get something through, and so law offices have lost quite a lot of power about what services they would use that would provide them better value. And so the industry has shifted quite a lot into now having the insurance administrator brokering maybe perhaps deals or working with certain company that they feel very comfortable with, but not letting the law office basically manage how it is that the process, at least on my end, the claim. And so what I'm trying to do is trying to see if I can create something that becomes of value back again to the law office, where they're able to manage documentation and be able to process the claim quite a lot faster. And so the whole idea is to save time, and of course that would mean money all the way across the board. And so I'm
Do you
working
run into,
on a couple of things on that.
Pushback ever? Well, because maybe there's a law firm that does want to use CVC legal, but their clients have a certain panel, or you're not on that panel yet, or you have to get permission. Like, how do you deal with that?
Of course, I used to cater quite a lot to, of course, only to the law office, because in those days, if you did a good job, they would see it, and by seeing that, they would get more business, and that's how it is that we were able to grow. But things have changed, and and I think it was a gentleman by the name of Jeff Adelson that what you guys had together, and he mentioned, when the person that is calling the shots wants it done in a certain way. Well, can you adjust yourself? And the answer is yes. You got to do that, but you got to also give the power to the one that basically is there to do that assignment and to get the services that would provide the best services. And I don't know whether I'm always providing the best services. I'm always trying to work on doing that. So one of the things that we're doing is trying to gather data from the state's public data system, EAMS, and be able to provide that on a flash regarding a claim. So when somebody types in an ADJ, everything just plops up within our application, so that they can go ahead and process paperwork. They can process the work quite a lot faster. And so we're working on that type of stuff. But I'm sorry, cool. I kind of went away from your question.
Here's the real question I have. On your resume, it says you were in the Hells Angels. Hells Angels in San Diego? What?
Yeah.
What's this?
I want to go
It's right here in black and white, dude. What does that mean?
Okay, so...
what's the Hells Angels story?
So, one of the things that have happened to us as a company, we have gotten involved in evolving and changing, ever changing. And one of the things we used to do quite a lot was actually
motorcycle gangs,
doing court filings, and also doing a process of service, which now a lot of it is being done electronically or what have you.
Right.
And so in those days we had to go and serve quite a lot of documents. We don't do that much anymore. And one of them was I ended up having to go in San Diego to serve a certain individual to show up on a claim, and he was part of a group of bike riders, and he didn't want to show up, and I didn't know that. But when I showed up in the outskirts of San Diego, kind of in a ranch kind of an area, and there must have been about 15 or so motorcycle guys. Of course, when the story gets older, it gets bigger,
it gets
right?
It was 5 guys last time.
Exactly. It's, before you know it, I'm trying to ask for the guy, and they see that I have some paperwork, and before you know it, they'll start gathering around me, and they're, here I am, a 5-foot person, and some of these guys are big brutes. And one of them puts out a shotgun and basically shoots one shot up in the air and says, "Son, you're not going to see that person. You got 30 seconds to get out of this place."
Oh my God!
I thought he was quail shooting, but okay.
But anyway, so I ended up saying my spiel, which is basically, doesn't matter. Here it is. He has been served, and I'm looking at 30 guys that kind of look the same, and I'm trying to figure out which one is the guy that I had to serve. Well, the good part of the story is
they're all dressed the same, right? They're all in leather.
So, but there was a lot of other interesting stories. There was one of the greatest ones. It's an old lady. I had to go serve an old lady, and look, I'm old now, but I mean, in those days when you're younger, you're looking at this person and that.
She was probably 30.
Exactly. And so she goes, "Can you hold 1 second?" And she's like, you can see her kind of be somewhat fragile, right? And I'm waiting to serve her. It must have been about 10 minutes or so, and I'm going, "What the heck?" She said to wait. And I'm thinking, maybe she's baking me an apple pie, And so I'm waiting.
Likely is.
And all of a sudden, the door opens, and a bucket of water comes and hits me right in the face.
Oh, no.
And she goes, "Get out of my property. I've already called the cops."
Whoa.
And I'm going, what do I do from here? So I said, "Look, ma'am, you still
been served.
You've still been serving."
And where's my apple pie?
Exactly. But one interesting story, this is about funny stories, is when we were doing gathering information, and we had to go to a law office. And I'm not going to name any names, but there was a law office where I ended up going in the back. They put me up in the file room, and I was copying several files. And in those days, you had to take away the files and remove all the staples, and there was a lot of preparation before you get. And in those days, there was like legal size documents and spreadsheets and what have you. So one of the first things that you do is you kind of prepare the documents before you're going to copy them, right? And so through the process of document preparation, there's a secretary that I had seen coming into the room, and then a guy comes in, and one of the attorneys, and before you know it, the attorney is all over this young lady.
They don't know you're there.
And they don't know I'm there. And and they're doing their thing. And before you know it,
you're involved.
I'm involved. I don't know how to say, excuse me.
You've been served.
It wasn't about serving. And so
he was.
The good thing is that now you can blackmail him and say, hey, I need more work.
Yeah.
And the funniest part about all that, of course, is the shock value of them seeing me when I started copying the document. because
so the machine is loud.
They see me and they see like an face that basically saying, right on, guys.
Right on. Keep it going.
And that was another story.
Luckily though, your company was called Micro Quick, so you were small in the corner, and quick, you can get out of the fast.
I always thought Micro Quick is because my uncle and my mom are small, so I thought that was the reason why. But you know what? What I did get out of this too is that, and I've known this because my uncle
I'm still
is really
not done.
big.
I'm still not done with stories.
Okay.
So
there's more, John.
Yeah,
hang on. This is the good one right now.
There's one about lottery tickets, and I heard the conversation that Todd had with Jeff Adelson, and how Jeff Adelson.
Oh yeah.
I remember that because I got you hooked up with Jeff Adelson in those days.
Oh yeah. Then I subsequently lost him.
Yeah. but you mentioned something very interesting. You were saying that he kept staying on the line talking to you like a father.
That was the weirdest thing.
Yeah. And I got onto that part.
He chewed me out, and then I figured that's when
he's such a sweet
man.
A
normal person just hangs out, right?
But he's a wonderful guy. Anyway, so Jeff, you guys were talking about how it is that you were giving gas tickets.
Yes.
And when I heard the story, I laughed, and the reason why I laughed really clear is because we got really kicked in the butt.
What happened?
Some years back. Our biggest client, by the way, our growth really evolved around State Comp Insurance Fund. That's where we did most of our work. And so for a period of time, I didn't really need to go and try to gather more business because we had quite a lot of business with State Fund. And then I did it. I've decided with my sister that we were so thankful. We thought we were going to put a lottery ticket inside the documents that we were going to give our clients, and really we didn't. Okay, whatever.
You didn't know it looked like a bribe.
No, when even though of course business started, like you mentioned about your gas situation,
it works.
Booming.
Business started booming
for a while,
but for us, we were already having a great deal of the business, so we didn't kind of see much of a change. People just like the idea that they could rub that little ticket for, it was only $1, what have you. But anyways, the point is, Jeff's got a good point. Everybody has a good point. This industry's changed in 1994 when Governor Wilson basically changed and they set out a law regarding how vendors behave. Because in those days, we used to go out and have all kinds of parties. Mm-hmm. I think Stacy Golden or Stacy Gunn.
You're talking about it as the good old days.
Yeah, the good old days, basically. And all kinds of Christmas parties, all kinds of parties, all kinds of everything you would find. But anyways, so with the lottery tickets, I got called in, I remember, to the Monterey Park office, and I had a couple of the managers that I had not even ever met. So here it is, meeting people that now, remember when you had that phone call from Jeff Adelson?
Oh, it's like, I remember like it was yesterday.
Adelson on a Friday, right? That kind of a thing. Uh-huh. And for me, it's like, I'm going to have a meeting at State Comp, and I'm thinking, wow, this is the big shots. They want to talk to me, and I'm so innocent, and so I go up there, and then they show me as evidence, of course, discovery, one set of documents that I've provided, and in it there's a lottery ticket. It doesn't say that it comes from CVC Legal. There was nothing, but They opened that up, and sure enough, there's a lottery ticket inside. And they asked me, "Do you have anything to do with this?" And I go, "Of course, we."
Of course, why wouldn't I?
Yes, and so they basically told me that that was not to be done anymore. And I thought, "Oh God, I got slapped in the wrist." No, I didn't get slapped in the wrist. They put out a notification. We didn't get any more work. So talking about highs and lows, I totally lost all my business with State Comp.
In one day, you lose it all. How much of the business did that represent at that time?
That must have been about 60% of our business.
Wow.
Yeah. State Fund was big for us in those days. So that actually, you know what? When there's a low moment, it's how you find ways of picking yourself up. And I've had these 2 nephews of mine working for me, and we've had some incredibly also low moments. And how is it that you start gathering together and you find, and there's always a sweet spot if you can find it, that actually makes you laugh about that past situation. And so it taught us that not to put all your eggs in one basket. And so,
that used to be a big thing they used to teach us.
Yes.
Is, you know what? Yeah, we're getting a lot of work from this company. That's not good.
Yes.
You know,
so
we need to even it out.
Yeah.
So that was the lesson. Is to, one, don't have all your eggs in one basket. 60% of your work with one client is too much. It's too dangerous.
Yes.
You have to spread that risk out, right?
Well, and you know what? There's companies that really do very well by actually that motto, and that is one client, do a very good work. But we all, as human beings, have the tendency of looking at new light, changing, evolving. And how is it that if you're just going to keep that one client, how is it that you can actually look at yourself and say, am I really evolving for that client? And so by being with different clients, I've been able to kind of see how is it that we can provide different services and also provide the same best service to somebody else if we can. So it's been a growth experience.
You bring up a good point too, is that when you face those low moments in life, which we all do, but ultimately, that was a really big one, right, that day, and mine with Jeff that you mentioned.
Yeah.
But the key is how you respond, and then also learning from it and finding the good in it. And the good in it is that, well, now you know better than to have all your eggs in the basket. You also know better on some of the ways to handle clients. And so what you did out of a gratitude heart, grateful heart to give those tickets out, it's actually bit you in the butt, unfortunately. But now you've learned from it. And now even on this podcast, we're letting other people know about that kind of thing.
But it's also correct. I mean, the full motion about, if you're given something that is outside of what you really do as a business, my business is legal services, and then now you're doing a lottery ticket, has nothing to do with legal services. I can see how it is that is.
Yeah. Well,
that
for
is
you,
not
it was
right,
a thank you. It was a thank
yeah.
you for out of the gratitude of your heart to these
but
clients.
It still doesn't, yeah.
But there were new rules that bit you in the butt, unfortunately. Well, you learned from it.
And how did you turn yourself around from that?
Well, one of the biggest mistakes that I know that I tend to have, and I'm talking to you guys about it right now, and hopefully I'm learning from it as I'm talking to you guys about it, and that is, how is it that sometimes when things get really hard and that bad moment happens, you tend to put yourself into a shelf, and instead of going back to that actually knocked you out, you kind of walk away. And that's basically what happened with us with the state fund. We didn't go back and fight to try to gather.
Do you regret that? Do you think you should have gone back?
Of course, and I'm trying to teach that right now to the kids that I'm coaching. That type of stuff. And I think I got involved in teaching. I've had a very good privilege of having very good persons working for me in sales. John, Rick. I've also had Roxanne. She's Roxanne Carmona, and also Fanny. And there's lessons that you can.
So another lesson there then is to have not walked away so quickly and just taken the nudges, not just accepted it that you lost it all, but maybe go back there and
be
appeal
a fighter
and fight for it.
Yes. if you really believe that you're still doing a good job,
and it was
so
it was a one-time mistake kind of thing.
And so now I'm empowering myself quite a lot with that kind of
I think that's a good reminder.
Yes,
I think that's a really good reminder.
And you know what, the thought of it is also everybody. Well, of course, the whole idea is we're all human, but so the persons that basically knocked you out, don't you think that they would have done some other things themselves? But the point is for you to go back to them and say, listen, look at us. Didn't we do a good job for you in whatever? Why don't you incorporate us back again? And we didn't. We let it. We kind of blew it. We let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah, you walked away with your tail between your legs instead of barking back, and
Silence.
How did you get? What do you do when you've lost 60% of the clients? What do you do the next day? How do you get it back?
It was, you know what? That's another thing. I've had employees. I still have employees that are been with us. You can say pretty much forever. And in those days, it was one of those. Can you go back to a little bit of your nest egg? See if you can get a little bit of your funds, or somebody help you gather a little bit of funds and hold yourself back again. That way you don't let anybody out of, you don't release people, basically. Another time that is...
So rather than laying off, you put money into the company to keep things going for payroll.
And it got itself back again. We were able to with different clients.
How long did that
That's
take?
how it is. It took some time. We started seeing, quite a good deal of work. We started with Sedgwick, getting quite a good deal of work, doing a very good work. I think at one time with Sedgwick, we were doing...
Pause. What's that sound like? Is it me? Somebody's touching. I feel like this. Anyway, maybe it was me, my foot.
And at one time, we were doing, for Sedgwick, pretty much all the IMR projects, because by law they had to get them done by the end of the year, December. I didn't know quite all the details about all that, but anyways, we got involved in doing thousands of IMRs, and I was able to gather a good group of people and get all that together. And again, this is one of those times where at the end of the project, we ended up, Sedgwick went back to their old vendor, which, in my opinion, had done them wrong, and we didn't quite fight back and say, "Listen, if we did you so well through this, and we saved you so much money in the process." But anyways, those are learning lessons that I'm, trying to.
I'm learning that my ride is here. You hear the police?
I hear them.
Interesting, talking about your ride. I was going to park in that 60-minute parking spot over here.
It's an ambulance. 60 minutes? Oh, yeah. What's your time frame like? We've been going for over an hour and 15.
No, but I was going to park in one of those 60 minutes thinking that my interview was not going to be that interesting.
No, it's very good. I really enjoy it. I do want to see some. I do want to ask. You love soccer. You're still playing it, even though you shouldn't be playing it. What is it about soccer? Your whole life, you've been playing the sport.
You know what? All of us find a way of diverging ourselves in finding someplace where we can really compete. And to this day, I guess I'm going to have to say it, 60-something years old, I'm still playing out there with some young guys on the 20 and 30-year level, and still being, because you kind of know where they're going to go. And it's kind of interesting about how it is that you learn, I guess a golfer would know how to experience it. He may not have the muscle power anymore, but he kind of knows how to read certain things, especially on the putting side, that type of stuff. But on me in soccer, it's just the fact that I can still compete with young people. And a couple of months ago, my son was playing basketball with all his high school and college friends, and I was able to play a basketball game with them. And actually, we played like about 4 games. So it was quite a lot of fun. I played with Johnny basketball with these very aggressive, quick guys, and I almost knocked out my hip on
I do remember that.
Yeah.
When we used to play against the Cedric people.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Carlos also played that.
That's
It's-
right. Yeah.
It's way more than just fun. I think it's highly competitive. People are doing that, right?
Right.
I wouldn't be good at that. I'm not good at sports anyway, but much less I don't want to take that. I don't want to get hurt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's so true though. Carlos makes a good point regarding being competitive.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be something that we have in our blood. It has to be.
I don't have any of it.
My
Yes,
uncle,
you do.
Carlos, my brother. We still
Not for sports.
We still play soccer. We still play any sport that someone wants a challenge or needs player. I do. I'll play volleyball, and I don't even really know anything about volleyball. But I'll make sure that I.
Actually, on the badminton court, I'm like, I'll mad dog you, man. I'll
What is-
take you down.
Wow.
Badminton.
What is that?
Challenge.
What
Challenge
is- I don't
accepted.
even- What is Batman? Like Batman?
Batman?
Badminton, you play the little
The
birdie.
Halloween
It's like
costume?
tennis, but in the air and a super light little birdie kind of
Oh,
thing.
it's so quick. They're so
Yeah.
quick when they're
I'm
doing
just
that.
kidding. I've only played it once in my life.
I got you.
No, but it's true. Like the competitive part, Carlos is very competitive. Carlos last year played with my soccer team, and we're all 30 years old, or I even have 20-year-olds on my team, and he was out there and he was
Wow.
throwing elbows. He was competing. He was making sure that his presence was there and was known, and it's amazing. And
it was not present by looks, but
but it's as a nephew. Believe it or not, it's very. I get very prideful when I see my uncles or anybody in my family out there and putting their heart into it and making a mark in life, and I like telling people that this is my uncle.
He's had a good heart his whole life. He'd even pull weeds and not expect to get paid. That's what I wrote down in my notes.
Yeah, he has a big heart, literally.
well,
And a large heart too, medically.
I've had so many family members work for me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like the farm team.
yeah, it's like
How many have you had?
I don't know. I would say more than 15 family members
that's a
working
lot.
for me.
Do you remember? Can you remember the names?
Well, there's my father, my mom. There's Octavio, my uncle. He's still working for me right now. So many years later, we're still together. Vicky's still working for me. My brother Luis came out of the company that he was working with my dad, and he wanted to start his own business, and he segued through with me to get it going in what he got involved with. Consuelo, his wife, was basically my first employee, and she was amazing at it, and the energy level was out of this world. I had a cousin by the name of Monica, Nubia, Patty. I mean, geez, I've had so many. John, Rick. So many people have gone through. My son Nick, and interesting story about Nick. He graduated in marketing, and one of the first things is I asked him if he could come and help me do marketing in this industry, in what we do, and he couldn't handle it. He just found himself, this is more of a kind of relationship kind of marketing world, and he wanted to be more like innovations. And if I provide you,
he's more of an inventor.
yeah, and so it didn't work out for him. So
That's okay.
So my mom, she's the co-owner of CVC Legal along with you. What kind of dynamic do you guys have in your office? Like, I know you're more in the marketing, she's more in the office. What makes that work? Because it's hard to work with your sibling.
Members, yeah.
I've listened regarding the whole idea about how people partner up, and it becomes the biggest mystery in the world. The good thing is my sister and we kind of know really, really well what our roles are. She basically makes sure that the product gets through quickly, gets done well, and it's on top of it regarding making sure that the client will get the end product as soon as possible. I have evolved in wearing many hats, but one of them was, can I go and take care of the emergency, anything at any moment, and get it done right? And the other part is trying to be a ham and trying to go out there and do customer service and attending relationships with our clients. And so we've been working very, very well. We don't step on anybody. Our conversations are more like, good, let's get it done. Sounds like a great idea. More than, what do you mean? What are you doing?
Right.
That type of stuff.
Yeah. You guys don't look at each other as so much as siblings, but partners.
Oh no, but that's one thing that I can tell you, and I think you guys know that, both you, John, and Rick, and that is, I really draw a very, very strong line. So I've had about more than 15 family members work for me, but the day, anytime, the day that they're working for me, they're working. They're not there as my cute little nephew. I've had all kinds of family members. I had this niece. This niece of mine that I love. Oh, I love everybody, but I love my niece, Sandra, and when she started coming in working for me, she was having a lot of emotional type issues, and I said, you know what, over here, this is what you got to do. She did it more than 120% better than
awesome.
And before you know it, I'm asking her to do more and more things, and she found a job working for a car dealership, and I told her, go, get out. If you know what, if the grass is greener in someplace else, go do it. But if you don't feel like that's going to be your end, come back in a week, come back in 2 weeks, and you still have a job over here. And she has evolved tremendously.
Big time.
So you've always had an open door policy for family members, especially.
Pretty much for anybody. Yeah. Anybody that I find that really wants to do something, and why not? Let's see what we can do together.
Yeah,
that's awesome, man. Stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we could go all day, but I know you got to run. Carlos Echeverry, did I forget anything?
No, I think
Any last thoughts?
His resume was completed.
Yes, it was.
Can you think?
I want to thank
thoughts?
you for coming on our podcast.
No, thank you so
much,
much,
Uncle.
Uncle.
It wasn't that bad, right?
No, actually, I thank you guys. I hope that
it's just a conversation.
I did really have a very good time, but I just hope that
me too.
We can all look at it and say,
we're all learning from each other.
Something interesting.
We're all learning from each other. Everyone has got something to teach me.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And we joke that sometimes these podcasts have been turning into like counseling sessions, but it's the guest who's the counselor, and we're like the patients.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's very true. I feel like I get something out of every single podcast.
Me too.
Doesn't matter how everybody else looks at it. I get something different out of each one. And I'll listen to this podcast later, and I can tell you what I learned from just this podcast. Even though I've known you my whole life, I'll still learn something from this podcast.
Huh. Well, interesting.
Interesting too is that in the moment we've all just experienced this conversation with Carlos, and so we take what we take from it in the moment. But you know what? After a couple weeks, when it's actually released and you listen to it again with sort of fresh ears, almost as an outsider, you catch stuff that you missed at the time, right?
Very true.
I've been noticing that.
Same here.
As we've been doing that.
That's a good point. And so the idea is, I'm sure between whomever it is on the side of being the host, the whole idea is, how is it that I can engage in getting the most that person can provide, both to the industry, but also to ourselves as people that would be willing to listen to this and get something out of it. And so it's a very difficult task, but
well, you did it, Carlos Echeverry. Thank you so much for coming on the T.O.A. Storytellers podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you, Uncle.
Hey, it's Todd. I just want to let you know this T.O.A. Storytellers podcast episode is sponsored by my company, Todd, Olivas & Associates. We've been supplying court reporters for Depositions since 2003. If you're an attorney and need a reporter anywhere in California, we've got you covered. We're on a lot of preferred vendor panels already, but if we're not on the ones you have, usually a simple inquiry from you to your TPA or employer does the trick. Or if you work at a TPA or employer, please ask your defense attorneys to give us a try on one of your files. We've been known to treat our clients like family, and we would love a chance to work with you next. To schedule a deposition, simply call 888-566-0253 or visit www.toddolivas.com. That's www.toddolivas.com. Thank you, and hopefully we'll see you at your next deposition.